Oh no, big slim dog, 80-pound ball, big 6-inch. The WBC said Devin Haney got 2 mandatories. Yeah. Say it ain't so. The WBC is back at it again. Devin Haney has 2 mandatories according to the WBC president Mauricio Sulaiman. Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell winner, as well as the always tough and rugged Javier Fortuna. Now, what up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. Now, Mauricio Sulaiman recently spoke about the lightweight division, which, in my opinion, already has far too many mandatories and things going on. You have Teofimo, who just beat Lomachenko. Lomachenko was considered all these things by old media. They compared him to Muhammad Ali. Some even said he would beat Floyd and all types of stuff. But in the end of the day, none of that actually turned out to be the case, or I don't know anyone that believes that. Then Lomachenko also, before fighting Teofimo, he didn't fight Devin Haney, who had been frequently calling him out. He didn't rise to the occasion. In fact, he did the polar opposite. He had his team and Top Rank reach out to the WBC and say, hey, that franchise champion status that you gave to Canelo Alvarez a year previously before this, I want that. And the WBC granted it. Now, in a more recent, meeting, the WBC's Mauricio Sulaiman has proclaimed that Devin Haney, who became a champion, some people are saying he's the email champion, disrespecting, because he couldn't get the fight that he wanted. We all know he wanted Lomachenko. He's been calling out Teofimo. Teofimo's pops said on tape, you can find it on YouTube, that they want $10 million to fight Devin. So we see the games that are being played. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. But Devin Haney, as a result, by default, even though he didn't get the fights he wanted, he was appointed as the WBC full champion. And you have Teofimo, who's the franchise champion. And you also have Ryan Garcia, who's about to fight a step in the right direction for a version of the WBC belt. He has like the interim belt or whatnot. And that was a long time coming. It took forever to get that fight off the ground. The WBC and Golden Boy had been talking about it, but we'll get it probably the first fight of the new year, January 2nd. Now the WBC says, and I quote, the lightweight division, the mandatory contender for Devin Haney is the winner of Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. Because he won a vacant championship, he also has a second mandatory, which is Javier Fortuna. Fortuna was going to fight against Linares, but Linares tested positive with the virus. So Fortuna remains and is one of the 2 mandatories for Haney, right? So Devin Haney, per Mauricio Sulaiman, who's running the WBC program, has 2 mandatories. Highly confusing. He continues by saying, this weight category goes back 3 years with extreme complications, right? Mikey Garcia ended up leaving the division. He knocked out Dejan Zlaticanin. I was actually at that fight, and it was a beautiful knockout and performance by Mikey Garcia. He, for whatever reason, I see something, and he decided to fight Errol Spence Jr. Definitely didn't go his way at 147, but he couldn't make 135. So after going to 47, he didn't want to come back to 35. The belt became vacant. Devin Haney thought he signed with Eddie Hearn and thought he was going to get an Eddie Hearn fighter, Luke Campbell, but Top Rank and Lomachenko swooped in and said, hey, we already have a champion at lightweight. He wants to fight Luke Campbell, and they fought for the vacant belt. So Mauricio Sulaiman saying it goes back 3 years with extreme complications, but they're the ones who made it complicated. It says Devin Haney won the interim title, then the world title, then he got injured. Then Fortuna was going to fight Luke Campbell, and then it got canceled because of the pandemic. It's a long process. Haney has the mandatory in the winner of Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell now. And since Fortuna couldn't do the fight, he is the second mandatory. So, this is just more BS from the WBC. First of all, you have an African-American fighter in Devin Haney, and he has 2 tough mandatories, right? Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell winner, and Javier Fortuna, who just looked spicy on PBC a few weeks back, right? But in another division, they're coddling and babying Canelo, and he's trying to do a hometown fight with a guy coming off a loss, Avni YILDRIM. And Canelo, who was a franchise champion at 160, got first dibs on YILDRIM, then switched gears and sued Golden Boy, and DAZN got out of his contract with Oscar De La Hoya, and then he didn't fight Avni YILDRIM. He switched gears and said, hey, I'm a free agent. Our first fight is Callum Smith. So the WBC rerouted because the Canelo changed his mind, and then they made the Callum Smith Canelo fight for the vacant WBC title. And the reason they said initially in August that Canelo had to fight, or he wanted to fight Avni YILDRIM, put in a request, they said they approved it because he was the franchise champion. They initially said the franchise champion had no mandatories, which is why Canelo did not fight another African-American fighter, Jermall Charlo, at 160 when he beat Golovkin for the WBC champion. Golovkin didn't fight the African-American fighter, Jermall Charlo. And then when Canelo beat him in the second fight and obtained those titles, that mandatory obligation should have been passed to Canelo, but they found a way out of it, and Canelo never fought Jermall Charlo, and they did to a second African-American fighter, Jermall Charlo, by default, put him in with basically a vacant title, and he earned the title by email or whatever you want to call it, just like Devin Haney would happen with him and Lomachenko later. So, you know, it's like everybody should just come out with their own belts, because people seem to be making up the rules as they go. How does Canelo get to fight Callum Smith when he said he wanted to fight Avni YILDRIM, and the WBC said 36-1 voted in favor of Canelo fighting YILDRIM? Then Canelo sues everybody and gets out of his deal with DAZN, and he's not tethered to Golden Boy anymore, and says, I'm fighting someone different. And then they make the WBC belt eligible right there, right? And then now they say Canelo has a mandatory, but I thought the franchise champion didn't have a mandatory. And if the franchise champion does have mandatories, then why didn't he fight Jermall Charlo? Any way you slice it, this doesn't look good for the WBC. Very inconsistent rule set. And then now back to this video, you have Devin Haney, an African-American fighter, and you know, he's looking good in fights. He got bumped up and he's being power played by Teofimo and Top Rank, because Teofimo, he beat Lomachenko, so he's feeling himself, and he's saying like, oh, you an email champ, and he gets to poke fun at Devin Haney and ask for an absurd amount of money for that particular fight, $10 million, which would never happen. And then Devin Haney's stuck, and he has 2 mandatories. But it's just so many, I could go on and on. It's so many confusing things. And Mauricio Sulaiman, based on his own words, he knows it's confusing because it is. That's why he can't explain it. He's saying this weight category goes back 3 years with extreme complications, but you guys made it extremely complicated. It wasn't complicated until you made it this way, right? And then now you have Devin Haney, who has 2 mandatories, Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. I will say that's a good fight, you know, Devin Haney versus Ryan Campbell. And, you know, fans would love to see it. But now with 2 mandatories, look at the plays that are being set up. Once again, you have Canelo, who was franchised out to not fight mandatories at 160. And then now they're saying he has a mandatory at 168. And he's having first dibs at 168. And they're talking about a hometown fight in Guadalajara. But he has to fight mandatories all of a sudden. But he only has 1. Because why doesn't Canelo have 2 mandatories, Avni YILDRIM and David Benavidez, who should be highly ranked since he held that WBC title 2 times? But for Devin Haney, an African-American fighter, he has 2 tough mandatories. The winner of Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell, you know, that's going to be a great name in the lightweight division, as well as Javier Fortuna. He's rough and rugged with everybody. So now peep the play. The thing I don't like about it, although Ryan Garcia he's favored to win. So let's say Ryan Garcia beats Campbell and then he fights Devin Haney. Now, since Devin Haney has 2 mandatories, they can play this game. And if Golden Boy, right, like which is established by Oscar De La Hoya and whatnot, aren't ready to put Ryan Garcia in with Devin Haney, then they're going to use Javier Fortuna since he's a mandatory as well. And they're going to use him as a pawn, you know, and you almost have that cushion, if that makes sense. You have a cushion because if you have 2 mandatories, technically the WBC can vote or do whatever they want and order Devin Haney to fight either one. The bigger fight would be Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell winner. So how is Javier Fortuna a second mandatory? You know, Javier Fortuna, I want him to get his opportunities, but what I'm saying, I don't like the fact that the WBC keeps doing this. Dillian White was unsure of his positioning with Dominic Brazil. They had a #1 rated guy and a #1 mandatory. They did this in the past with Danny Garcia and Amir Khan. It's like the whole program needs a refresher because it just looks bad. It just looks extremely bad because it doesn't seem to be defined rules for every fighter. Listen, I have no problem with Devin Haney taking tough fights, and from what he's saying, he says he wants the tough fights. So I get that. But at the end of the day, let's keep consistent rules. Why doesn't Canelo have 2 mandatories, Abney Yildirim and then David Benavidez? Let me know what you guys think. Use my link in the description, ESPN Plus. They have a ton of original content, docu-series, documentaries, archive footage, and much more for your viewing pleasure. ESPN Plus is $5.99 a month, or get the bundle. ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus, all 3 apps for one low price of $12.99. And Disney Plus just announced a monster schedule, so you guys want to check that out. ESPN Plus, $12.99, Hulu, bundle with Disney Plus. They got The Mandalorian back and a ton of other shows. Let me know what you guys think. Is this fair from the WBC, these inconsistent rules that seem to affect others like Charlo and Devin Haney more so than the Canelos of the world? Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I drop daily content. I go live. Hit the bell notification for much more content like this and others. I'd like to see consistency and uniformity in the world of boxing. Maybe that's too much to ask in 2021. Let me know what you guys think. Devin Haney has 2 mandatories. Ryan Garcia, we got to see how he looks versus Luke Campbell before anyone gets excited. But I don't like how they have the leverage of, it should just be one person named. You know, I don't like how they have the leverage to pick Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell, and if Golden Boy's not ready for Ryan to fight Devin, then they're going to throw Javier Fortuna on Devin Haney, which is still a good fight. But it should be announced who his mandatory is. You know, how do you have 2 mandatories and he's one person, but Canelo has no responsibility? He has no tough mandatories, you know, and he definitely doesn't have dual mandatories. And then at franchise 160, they franchised him, so he didn't even have any mandatories like Jermall Charlo. Very bad, inconsistent behavior from Mauricio Sulaiman and the WBC. And I hope you guys see this. Smash the like button. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.